Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
Oh, what are you doing? I'll tell you what you're doing. You're listening to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Either you are, or I'll be skipping rope with your entrails. Ta-ta.
This is the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, your source for lore and so much more. Adventurers, welcome back to the show. This is Tom and Lotus. We're doing more Iceberg lore stuff after last week's talk about all the terrible news. We're moving back to some normal content, and boy, do we've got some weird ones.
Nothing we talk about on this show is North.
Nothing we talk, especially once we get deeper and deeper into this iceberg. And we've got I don't know, we got a real good one. I mean, it's kind of a. It's not like, okay, so we have a few that are like, oh, that's a good lore pull. Then there's definitely one in here that's like, really? Is that a thing? But we'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a minute.
Sure. We'll go with sure.
Sure, it is a thing. Sure. And if you're new to the show, welcome. We're delving deeper into the Elder Scrolls lore iceberg that we pulled from online. I found the biggest one that somebody had put together, and we are going through it with a little bit of the explanation that came with it, but then, of course, also our notes and our research and the other things that we're going to add to these to see if maybe these are real lore or maybe not, or some of these are just, fan theories and all sorts of coincidental things.
A good fan theory with enough support in a series that loves to leave things ambiguous is a great bit of fun, because then it allows you to put a little headcanon into it and still keep it within universe. And it's I think that's like the perfect mix.
Yeah, it's all part of the fun of enjoying these things, is to come up with your own connections and see where they go. But here, let's get into it, because the first one this week is number 57 on our list of more than 500, so we're only about 10% of the way through. This one is Summerset Mythical Beasts, and this is the description, the explanation that came with it. Fae and other mythical creatures are said to have been native to the Summerset Isles. Examples include Geetis, Welwa, and Illati, which were all apparently driven to extinction by the Altmer when they first arrived. ESO's Summerset expansion now plainly features pixies and other mythical creatures such as griffins. All right, Lotus. So the reference here is the Pocket Guide to the Empire, which mentions some of these creatures having been in Summerset earlier on in the history of the game. And as we've talked about before, that book is specifically for an Imperial audience in order to understand more about these other races and places and their beliefs and all of these things, right? And as we've discussed also, it's not necessarily the most factually accurate document in the series.
Correct. But when we get into this type of thing, we've now played in these areas enough that we have seen them. And even in some of the older games, I'm trying to remember if it was Arena or Daggerfall specifically. I think it was Daggerfall, actually. You could get a griffin plume. Mm-hmm. So it's long standing that there's evidence of some type of their existence. I mean, in ESO, it just gets to the point of just like, okay, I'm literally fighting a griffin because we're in Summerset. So
right.
You're good at that point.
Yeah.
But it wasn't quite so overt right out the gate. With a lot of that stuff.
Well, there's a few things here. When we get to Summerset in ESO, we find griffins and things, but we don't find some of these other creatures.
That's true.
Some of the more mythical old creatures. So something must have happened between, well, there's a few different options here. One of them is that something happened between the early years, the Merithic and the First Age, and then the writing down of things into the pocket guide and all of that. And maybe those are referencing actual true things that were there in the past. And then much like, I don't know, in our own world, as people from Europe settled the New World and came to find out that there were remains of creatures that had been there before they got there that were big, like saber-toothed cats and things like that. And that the assumption is that at some point, the earlier humans who got there before them must have killed off all of those species. And there's some actual real world evidence for that being probably the most likely cause of their extinctions. Right. But there could have been other things that caused their extinctions as well. So in this context, maybe it's something like that, or maybe those creatures never existed there to begin with.
That's exactly it. So, I mean, again, as the series has gone on, we've gotten a lot more of these. So like some of these that originally weren't really prominent are not much more prominent. And then to that point, it's like the ones we haven't seen, that's exactly it. Is it a situation of, well, were they driven to extinction? Were they there to begin with? Have we just not seen any yet? Because that's another situation is oftentimes with the Elder Scrolls series, it's just not there until you see it. So the population count could be smaller and we just haven't run into it. Examples like, stuff like that. Because even in ESO, we weren't fighting griffins until we made it to that area. Mm-hmm. What if, other things even being in certain areas, like, oh, it's in Skyrim, but it's solely contained to the Rift or something like that.
Right. Or they only exist underground in caves, or they...
Correct. Some of these things could also be in stipulations we have not technically interacted with still, because there's so much more that we still haven't seen, not even just on the continent, but just like on all of Nirn still.
Right. And if you look at the timeline, it's like, okay, we go far enough back in time and we have some evidence that these things existed. We get to the middle/end-ish period of the second era in ESO, and they don't seem to be there. We get to Arena, which is lacking a lot of things that were added to the lore later in the series, but they're also not there in Arena. And the other option is that there's a meta reason. It's the Cyrodiil thing, right? Like,
right.
Oh, it's supposed to be a jungle, and then they actually make the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and it's not a jungle anymore because it just was not really feasible to do that.
Well, it's the same thing with dragons were really not prominent, but are prominent at certain points.
Yeah.
But then there's also, they're not ever really extinct either. But this is another weird scenario that I find interesting because it was something that was kind of contentious when it came into ESO, because it's like, okay, well, if they're just everywhere here, like we had the Dragon Wars, like, and obviously prior to that, so there were dragons, and then no dragons, and then dragons during the interregnum, but then not really. Well, then it was
contained dragons in one location.
Some dragons, I bet 7 or 8 dragons, maybe. One of which is working for the Empire during one of the things, and then like one of them's in the battle spire. Like, okay, but then come the time of Skyrim, the dragons are all being resurrected, so dragons are commonplace again. But then Parthenax is still there, so it's like it's almost like they were never really gone. There's just lulls in how much you interact with them. So that also could be another thing that we just haven't really had one of the peaks of interacting with these things yet.
Yeah. And that's actually very reasonable to think that like the population of dragons would have changed over time, or that, maybe
they're a little more contentious too than some of the other ones. It's kind of hard to avoid a dragon the way you can avoid,
Right. But they also could just
Khajiit
go away and not bother anybody if they don't want to, they're dragons. They could fly up and live in the mountains.
When you're the size of a house, it's kind of hard to hide.
Yeah. Well, unless you travel to a very remote place and
you're at
or who knows, maybe they hibernate.
Throat of the world or something like that.
Exactly. Like Parthenax, right?
We also have, planes of oblivion that come and go as needed. So, that's got its own set of rules that we're dealing with.
Yep. So this one seems possible. I don't doubt that it could be that there were these other mythical creatures. We just don't have that much other evidence as to what happened to them or where they would have gone or what would happen. So to assume that, I think it's a fair assumption. The High Elves got rid of them because they were a nuisance. They were a problem. And the High Elves are powerful, magic wielding people.
Pest control.
Yeah, the Altmer, I mean, you put together but enough Altmer mages and they probably could cleanse the Isles within a few years and then no more problems with, Welwa or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So there you go. So that's our thoughts on 57. Let's move to the next one. 58, The Book of Fate. The book found inside Calixto's House of Curiosities. Calixto claims that its contents change from reader to reader. For the player, the book is completely empty, which Calixto claims to signify either an uncertain fate or an imminent death. It is unknown if the book has real magical properties or not. What are your thoughts on this one, Lotus? This is a Skyrim thing, by the way, in case anybody wants to go look this up in game.
Yeah. This is kind of weird, but also in this situation, I don't know. It's interesting because it ties so much into how the Elder Scrolls themselves work, I find. So the concept of an ever-changing or it looks different depending upon who's reading it or whatever isn't out of the realm of possibility within the boundaries that this series has anyways.
Right.
So to have it contained of something like this to a single book doesn't seem like, okay, yeah, no, that actually kind of tracks with the way the Elder Scrolls work. Like in the Imperial Library, whoever counts them is counting a different number and they're all correct and they're all wrong. And it's like, oh, when I read it, it was this, because it's like, they get into a lot with, with the threads of fate. If you deal a lot with the Maes Mora storylines and stuff like that, it's like, since they're constantly changing, the trick is seeing all the possibilities. Hence the whole Maes Mora thing, where it's just like, oh, he's always trying to find which path they're currently on with the way the current threads are going. You also have Dragon Breaks breaking into things, which causes all sorts of other issues. But it's just like, there's a myriad of options. So the fact that you can't see something could just be that, yeah, it's just like, well, it's ever changing. And I like the idea that it's just like, it's noted off to the side. It's like, well, if you've got an empty page, it's like starting a fresh save file. So it's very fourth wall breaking. Like I like that as a concept, because they do break the fourth wall. I'm not going to say constantly in the series, but
it comes up.
There's a notable amount of scenarios where it's fourth wall breaking.
Yeah.
So
Maik the Liar is just the easiest one to think off the top of your head.
So essentially, it's a blank slate to your save file. It's just like a fresh memory slot that you're going into. And I think that's actually kind of a cool concept, that it's like, well, your fate hasn't been written because you haven't played it yet.
Right. Yeah. I hadn't thought about the save file aspect. For me, it feels like this is one of those perfect dilemmas or perfect things for you to come up with some sort of try to explain it kind of thing. Because the two main options seem to me that either this is true and depends on who looks at the book, and there's some sort of magic in the book, and the book will reveal something about your future, or sometimes will be blank for some people. And if that is the case, then maybe that is a nod to the character player. I mean, you are the last Dragonborn. You are the one who can change the fate of the world. And there is absolutely connection in the lore to the prisoner or being a Shezareen or something like that. Like this idea that like the player character is always a reincarnation of Lorkhan, and that's why they can adjust the world, or they're representative of the prisoner, and that whole side of things. Yeah. And in which case, since you haven't done the things yet, then your future is unspecified. And so that would make sense. Or the flip side of this is the book is just blank. Because
I know, there's also the funny idea, because there are several things in this where it's like, oh, this is totally this thing. And it's like, it's just a vase, dude. Like, there's nothing to this. This is not a magical item.
Right. Calixto is running a curiosity place. He has to have things in it that are going to draw people who are curious to come look at them, and to have an explanation for a blank book that might just possibly show you your future, but most of the time it's just blank. It's really easy. It's a really easy way to get people to come visit your store, right?
Exactly. It's like, that sounds like quite a grift as well. So it could totally just be a total gimmick.
Right. Yeah. So it could be, I mean, and I feel like it is equally likely to be either. Like it very well could be one, and it's like, well, you're the player character, so you can't see your future in it.
Yep.
Or it's very likely to be other. The only piece of it that I can come up with as evidence for why it may be legit is the fact that it is laid out publicly for anyone who walks into his little shop to take a look at. And you would imagine that if you gathered enough people around it and nobody saw anything show up on the pages, then you would start to put two and two together and be like, okay, man, it's just a blank book.
At this point, we're 0 for 80. Like, does anybody have a future?
Right. Or a powerful enough mage of some sort could just test the book to see if it's enchanted with any magical properties.
Right.
And know immediately, oh, well, this book, it's not even magical.
Yeah. There's no power emanating from this thing. It's poorly designed parchment or something.
Right. Yeah. So that part makes me go, well, it seems like the kind of thing that could easily be figured out if people cared enough to do so. It can be easily
disproven or proven in theory.
Right. But we as the player only can go in there and look at it by ourselves. And so it's a fun little trick by the developers to be like, maybe it's magic, maybe it's not. And these are the little pieces that I love in the series. I love when stuff like this happens and you're like, which one is it? I don't really know.
Right. Is this super mythical, or is this totally just like an in-game? Like, it's one of the things that, again, I like. Not everything in the series needs to be this like elaborate. That's what makes the world feel real. Is they're just straight up con artists, like in the series constantly, or people with like really disturbing side habits, like Cassius when you're playing Morrowind. It's just like, dude, the guy's a schematic, bro.
Yeah, right.
That's what he is.
Right.
Like,
I don't know.
He can be two things.
Yeah.
But it's funny that those are options.
Yeah, it feels like there's a real world lesson here where, like, if things seem too special, too magical, guess what? They're probably not. I mean, they might be, but most of the time, nope. Like,
yeah.
If it doesn't feel real, it's probably not real. Just go with your gut.
Yep.
But anyway, that's the Book of Fate. All right, number 59 is just Artaeum. And if you've played through Elder Scrolls Online and you've gone to Artaeum, then you might know some things about Artaeum. Artaeum's cool. It's an island where the Psijic Order resides. It can be found near the Summerset Isles, but frequently travels between dimensions. And there's a lot more to it. This specific wiki one references the Artaeum UESP page. And so I pulled some stuff out of that to just kind of quote real fast, because there really isn't a whole lot to say beyond just what is stated here. As it's not, there's not really a mystery here. It's more of just, hey, this place is pretty cool for these reasons.
I was going to say, this is one of those things where it's just kind of like you're describing a thing that is in the series. Which I don't, again, we've had a few of these come up and I'm like, I'm not trying to like dunk on these being added or the people who are adding them, but I'm like, so you played a portion of one of the games. Got it.
Yeah. And like, some of these are for people who only who miss stuff, who don't play through everything. And it's something else they should be aware of, is kind of the perspective on it.
Or some people that I'm friends with who just hit X through all the stories and then say they don't know what's going on. And I'm like, well, yes, I'm sure you don't.
Yeah. Well, here's what it says on these are just some, we're not going to read the whole wiki, but these are just some snippets I pulled out. Artaeum is the home of the Psijic Order, the oldest monastic group in Tamriel. It has a tendency to vanish from Nirn, being placed in a pocket realm for centuries at a time by the magic of the Psijics. It is said that this plane exists in a place harder to reach than even Aetherius, or even realms beyond it. What is beyond Aetherius? You got me. That, I guess we're going all the way back to primordial creations or
the void and stuff.
Other Kelpas. Yeah, the void, other Kelpas. I don't know. Where even the magic of the sea slode can't reach, thus allowing for the Order to research the truths of Erebus without interruption. It is said that even the Daedric princes do not know where Artaeum is located. That part is really interesting. There's also this other section.
Weird, because that's a rare thing where they like, because they can even peer into each other's realms, which are very, very protected. So it's strange that apparently this is essentially just pulled straight out of time and place.
Yeah, it shows that the Psijics are not to be messed with. They're pretty powerful. And when you come across them, for example, in Skyrim, Like that part of the quest line where all of a sudden you're being spoken to by a voice and you're like, what is even going on? Okay, there are these elves that are outside of time.
Like,
right.
Yes. So that it's like, no, we need this to stop for a second so that I can discuss this. Then we'll go back to what's actually happening. And it's like, all right, that's not
what the
something you
Akatosh is
encounter
happening.
too frequently. Yeah. What the Akatosh?
Yeah, what the Akatosh? That needs to be somebody just say that in the series. But there's this other section. The Isle of Artaeum has idyllic orchards and clear pastures, still and silent lagoons, misty woodlands, and the unique Psijic architecture that seems to be as natural as its surroundings. The Sephora Tower, and this part's really cool, is a relic from a civilization that predates the High Elves by several hundred years. It is the location of the Dreaming Cavern, which Sotha Sil once used as some sort of portal into the realms of oblivion, but which have since been sealed off by the Psijics themselves. So the island seems to have some native magical properties that the previous civilization on the island knew about. But we're talking Summerset. This is one of the islands of Summerset. And the High Elves, well, of course, in the lore, they come here from over the sea and they take over. But the people, like in that previous one, there were crazy, weird beasts. There were goblins. There were not men, as far as we know.
Probably not.
Probably not.
Nothing that was noted.
Right. Like the Needs and like the early men who came across from the north are all in the mid to the northern parts of the continent. This is the southwestern side. So what was the civilization who lived here before them? I'm not really sure.
There's the reference to those bird people.
Yeah, the bird people. I guess there's bird people. There's some other weird, like there. If you look through the lore, there is speculation of like the groups of individuals and types of races and civilizations that the High Elves and the Aliens and the Chimer,
like Merithic, and before it starts getting as nebulous as the lore is, it gets really, really just like, all right, well, it's it's hard to determine w's just random hearsay at that point.
Right. Or are these just old stories that have been passed down, but there's really not a whole lot of evidence for that being a thing. It's kind of an interesting point. But Artaeum is a cool place you can visit in ESO, and the island, like so many other things, is clearly scaled down in the lore. It's much bigger.
It looks really cool in Elder Scrolls Online, but it is like very, very scaled down in Elder Scrolls Online as well. It takes like 4 minutes to walk across it.
Right. And then you teleport into the place where all the Psijics are working. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, exactly. Because you've got yes, exactly.
Yeah. But there you go. Not too much else to say about that specifically. But this next one is the one that I was alluding to at the beginning, because I think this one's pretty weird and also kind of funny. Okay. So number 60, giants are orcs. Here's the explanation. The in-game models for giants have bony profusions on the upper brow in a manner similar to some orcs, leading to speculation on shared split ancestry. Probably? What do you think about this?
Okay, so this was the one, obviously, we tried to not do the show before the show, but this was obviously the one that we were like, okay, well, this is the outlier, as you've probably noticed. But I mean, we don't control which order these are in, but like oftentimes it's kind of funny. It just happens that we have one that we kind of hang up on each show. Not always, but I feel like you need to take some real leaps to get to this conclusion.
Yeah, especially because the only piece of evidence noted here is the brow ridges looking very similar between the two races.
Yeah.
No other like, oh, well, if you look at the types of runes that they use in their language, there's connections there, or they have similar customs, or I mean, they don't really have genetics so much, but like, the mages tested them and could tell that their lineages at some point were the same, and
very similar.
The groups divided, sometime in the Merithic era or something like that. We don't have any of that. The logic is there's they have one feature that is similar to another race. By that same logic, dragons used to be Khajiit because they both have tails.
Right.
It's like, no, that's not true, but okay, I guess.
Yes. And I mean, that also using that, I mean, like I said, that is kind of a pretty substantial logical leap. Not that it can't possibly be true. It's just that is a correlation made on really next to such a negligible amount of information.
Right.
It's just like, okay, well, men and mer are actually just the same thing because they both are bipedal and humanoid. Like,
right. And they have skin. So they must be the same.
Like,
yeah.
Right. And actually, in the end, it turns out that Bosmer are actually slowed because they both have eyes. Like,
right. It's the same sort of thing. Yeah.
It's like you're taking one thing and just using that as the basis to make a correlation, as opposed to anything else to try to make them correlated. It's just
right. You would expect if this was the truth, there would be evidence in other ways that would be easy to find.
Or even to work toward it. It doesn't even necessarily need to be easy to find. It would just need to be anything. This is literally like,
yes,
it's just the brow shape is similar. So I'm like, I got nothing. This just sounds like somebody noticed that the two model types were similar.
Right. Sometimes, right. It's not even every time. Yeah. Barky in chat says giants being orcs would mean that they were elves at some point if the stinky orc origin is to believed, right? So there's the origin of orcs is divided. Some groups believe that they are a type of elf. Other groups believe that they are not a type of elf and they are distinctly a beast race that is separate from the elf. There's a little bit of evidence for both sides of that.
Yeah, I definitely lean toward the probably mer type of thing, but in many ways. But yeah, this one seems like a pretty major stretch to me to make that leap in logic.
Right. Rob even asks, is there any evidence of Malakath worship, which you would expect, being that the orcs, or at least I guess maybe the majority, at least some orcs.
Just because it's Rob is what I thought you were going to say.
But because it's Rob. The orcs, there are orcs who worship Malakath. And so if they were connected to that would make a connection. Also, Malakath being the Daedric prince of kind of the underdog, the beast races and things like that. But then that might just be the correlation, is that that's the god that is the most for them. So they would worship it whether they were orcs or not anyway, because that's still kind of flimsy evidence. You would expect that something like that would be true, but it doesn't necessarily work the other way around. It's just like I said, there's just so little to it. It's not necessarily just making it like, oh, well, this is clearly untrue. It's just that's just such a straw. Like a straw man way of being like, oh, there's this one thing. It's like, do you have anything else? And they all have 5 toes on each foot. Okay.
Right. It just,
all right.
Without substantially more to this, it looks like somebody that noticed 2 things and tried to make a connection that sounded deep.
Yeah. They wrote a Reddit post 12 years ago, and now it's on an Iceberg list, and we're talking about it still.
And it was honestly probably like somebody that was just working on like a mod and noticed that the models were super similar or something like that.
Right.
So
which might be the case. Like it's not like anybody making like assets for a video game probably are taking existing assets and then adjusting them to be the new thing, because it's easier than just building from scratch, right? So that would totally make sense too. But that also is a game design thing. It doesn't necessarily mean it relates to the lore.
Yeah, but this one, I'm going to say this ship is sailing out to sea for me. I don't see this being a thing at all. Unless I would love if somebody's actually like, oh no, you know what? There's all this other evidence. I'm just like, well, touche then. But without somebody throwing that at me, it doesn't seem like there's enough there to make this conclusion at all. Yeah,
it's speculative at best. All right, well, we got one more. This is number 61, Star Wound. This one is interesting because it kind of changed my perspective on some things a little bit. So here's the explanation. Refers to the heart of Lorkhan, which landed in Vardenfell and formed the Red Mountain, which we all know. This comes up all the time. Yep. Also known as
the sweet song that we play at the end of the show of my other podcast.
Right. But this is also known as the Star Wounded East. The term Star Wound is also used twice in the 36 Lessons of Vivek and once in Lord Vivek's sword meeting with Cyrus the Restless. So this information comes from Vivek, which is and also isn't valuable because Vivek clearly knows a lot of things, but is also a liar. So which one of those things is it? I don't know. But what this does to me, Lotus, is it makes me think about how, and maybe this isn't something like when I picture his heart being torn out of his chest and tossed in the ocean, and they were supposedly in the lore, they're standing near the what's the tower, the adamantine tower.
Oh, the adamantine tower.
Yeah. So supposedly the Aedra are all gathered at the adamantine tower for a meeting, and Akatosh tears out Lorkhan's heart and tosses it into the ocean. Period. And so that pictures in my mind, they're all in like bodily form, kind of the way that the Daedric princes will take on bodily form. But most of the time when we talk about Aedra, they are planets or star-like lights in the sky, whether they're physical or not as a planet, depends on the description of the thing. Oftentimes it's just a colored light or whatever. And so if all of the Aedra are also celestial bodies and Lorkhan, the remains of Lorkhan, as some believe, are the two moons, then was the description of them physically being at the adamantine tower not literally accurate? And what is more likely to have happened is that the planet of Lorkhan was in the sky and was sundered, and a piece of it fell down to Tamriel and landed in the ocean.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. This one I find to be an interesting take because it's really whether you kind of want to double down on the planetary portion of this or not.
Yeah.
Which I find interesting because as is the planetary theories and stuff like that is so bizarre.
Right.
To me.
Right.
But going on that being how the situation is, I could see that being the case for sure. And it's just kind of an interesting interesting bit, but it also relies on the I don't even know what to call that specifically, like the solar theory. I don't know what the planetary thing, like whatever you want to call it. But assuming that that's actually like based in how this works, like, I guess that could be like an explanation to it as opposed to them literally chucking his heart.
Right. And we do know that each of the Aedra are represented by a planet, and that those planets themselves are also kind of like the Daedra are their own. They live in, but are also the actual realm, of Oblivion. Right. Like they have different realms of Oblivion.
Is them.
They and the realm are one and the same. They just sometimes can manifest as a physical form that's like a body. And so I would have to assume that, and the lore does point to this, that the Aedra, like those planets are also their own realms, and they are kind of infinite into themselves simultaneously.
Right. Yeah, they're supposed to be infinite, and the only reason they look round like planets is because the conception of people's vision, like you can't see infinity. You can't see infinity, it warps and looks like a sphere.
A sphere is infinite in a way, right?
Because it's looping forever. So it's like that's what you see as like the image. So it then looks like a planet.
Right, but none of them are close enough to be like made out in the same way that, like, from somebody's eyes looking at the sky, the same way the moons are. And so that makes me, I think that's the part that would hung me up on those theories before, is like, okay, those other planets are so far away, they just look like dots of light. So you can say they are anything you want them to be because nobody would ever know. But the moon is a lot closer, and it's not just a dot of light, right? It's a physical thing. And you can travel to it because we did it in ESO.
You literally did in ESO.
Right. So it is a physical space.
It's a physical space that you can touch and inhabit.
Yeah. But maybe that used to be something that was more like the living body, the infinite living body of a god. And when it lost its godlike powers, it had to solidify around something finite. And so became the two sundered moons, like they used to be one thing, but now broken into two, and have reformed into spheres because of gravity, maybe. And yet portions of that also fell to Tamriel, which would make sense, being that it's so close as a moon as opposed to far away like a planet.
Right.
So I don't know.
This one's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't feel it. So, okay, this is what this feels like. this to me feels like a glimpse into the lore that has not been fully revealed, that people like Ted Peterson and what's his last name? He wrote the Lessons of Vivek. Kirkbride.
Oh, Kirkbride.
I was like, my brain was going to other K names, and I'm like, it's not Kirkpatrick, Kirkbride. But this feels like a Kirkbride leaving us a breadcrumb as to like, yes, the planets and the moons are what you might think they are. Like, yes, they are. Here's some evidence for that. But
we haven't, without sounding dark, we haven't gotten there yet, and might never get there.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yeah. Right. Or it's so far in the past that like we're never going to see it, but there is.
Oh yeah. No, less that we would experience it and see it, but I mean more that we would even get more of it fleshed out, so to speak.
Right. Like, because these are offhand comments about a thing that happened that seem to reveal more evidence about the facts of the past. It's not a specific focus. It's not like Vivek was like, here, let me explain to you the lore behind you know, who Lorkhan actually was and how this went about. It's more of just
prepare for a lore dump, hints. And then he just spouts exposition at you for 19 hours.
Right. Yeah, that's not Vivek's style. He's more like spout a bunch of exposition, but it's all like poetic and weird.
Flowery gibberish.
Right. Yep. There you go. So I don't know, but I think this one has some potential. If you think this one has some potential, if there's some other stuff on any of these that you're like, hey, you guys didn't consider this might be a thing, because the lore is big. We're not going to remember everything as we discuss them.
Certainly not. If that's not already very apparent, the point of this show is for us to all discover stuff.
Yeah. So let's discover it together. And if you notice something, kindly point it out, because maybe it just wasn't something that came to mind as we were looking into these. But there you go. That's our icebergs for this week. We're going to kick off next week with number 62. But before we transition to the end of the show, we've got to take a quick little break here, and then we got to thank our patrons. And we've got some new patrons to shout out. So we'll do all of that, and we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance, all backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.
This is Hamish Mora, Dragonborn, and you are educating yourself to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast.
All right, we are back, and we've got two new patrons to thank for signing up. Patreon.com/Elder Scrolls Lorecast if you'd like to get ad-free episodes. If you would like to join us for our patron chats, there's some other stuff on there you can get. And we have to shout out our newest members, Chatty Geek Hidden Dragon. That is a callback to that movie.
Nice.
What was the name of the movie?
Crouching Tiger.
Crouching Tiger. I couldn't come up with the Crouching Tiger part. And then Ben F., thank you so much for your support and for joining us. Also, shout outs to our Daedric Princess, Kira C, Blinding Vision, Hercene, Peter R, and Mintaka. Thank you for your continued support. If you sign up at that tier, you get shout outs every week. And
appreciate all of you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for helping us out with that. Also, if you'd like to help in other ways, share the show with a friend. If you've got people who are getting into playing Skyrim for the first time, even though the game's like ancient now or whatever, then
I know,
send them our way.
I'm constantly seeing people talking about, their first experiences with the series, even now. And it's like, everybody's going to start somewhere and sometime.
Yeah, there's a whole generation of people who were not old enough to play these games 15 years ago and are now discovering them. So absolutely. Yeah. So any other thing else before we've got the random page coming up, but any other things to share before we move on?
No, not really. On our end, we had two back-to-back within, I think it was 16 hours apart, episodes of Tales of Tamriel, because we released the episode and then the whole layoff thing happened. So we had back-to-back episodes. And then again, we generally do bi-weekly there. So that was like extra weird.
Yeah, it's too real quick, not even a week apart.
It was like comically fast.
Yeah.
But it was much like the show we had to, it was kind of pressing. It was worth talking about. And right after that, Ark, he's back now, but he went to the ESO Tavern in Germany.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was a fantastic time. I'm very eager to hear. We're going to have to figure out a recording because I'm away this weekend. So it might be midweek that we record next time if we don't wait till the following weekend. But to recap all of that, seemed like everybody that was there had a super fun time because those in-person events are great. Again, I'm super glad they had that one there again. I am.
Yeah.
I don't know how to. Again, I'm very curious on how in-person events will go going forward with everything. I'm assuming not personally, but I hope to be proven wrong.
That seems like a really easy thing to cut in the budget.
Sure does, and they certainly cut North America a while back.
Yep. Yes,
but yeah. So I don't know. I'm also, QuakeCon's on the horizon, so I'll be curious. What we'll see there, if anything.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Just because usually they go through a bunch of different things, but I don't know. I don't really know how to take a lot of the upcoming plans until we have more of it kind of formulate. But yeah.
Yeah, I posted this on social media. I've been trying to post more on social media and be a little bit more like out there with things.
Sure.
While still avoiding how much toxicity and terrible things there are on the internet. But one of the things I posted was that it would be a really good time to have a Todd Howard interview somewhere going over the changes and how they're still going to prioritize certain things and whatever. And I know there's a certain percentage of people out there who are like, well, Todd lies all the time. Todd specifically chooses his words very carefully because he's learned that when you run a company like that, he's
very PR trained.
He's very PR trained, but I don't think he ever specifically lies. I think most of the time when people say that he lies, they're taking his words out of context. Or like things like, well, and it just works. And it's like, well, now you're applying that to everything that he wasn't actually referring to when he used the line.
The other one that is meme worthy 16 times the detail.
Right.
That's the other one.
Right. And like from a technical standpoint, it might actually be 16 times the detail because it's like the file size is 16 times more or something. That's what he's talking about. But it turns into a marketing buzz thing. And then people relate it to something that it didn't and wasn't originally intended to relate to. And then they just start making fun of him. And it's like, I get it. People get upset. I think we should have had an Elder Scrolls 6 game 5 years ago. That would be amazing. But we didn't. And so here we are, So we'll have to see. It would be nice to have some confirmation, though, because we are getting comments from people who were at, say, ZeniMax saying things like, there's no way they're going to be able to keep up the pace of rolling things out the way that we had planned, things like that.
That, and we don't need to totally divulge into the news to end this. So I'll just briefly, I mean, it's just, this is very tied into the game that we all love. If we're diving into lore this deep on it type of thing. But there've been a ton of structural changes with these companies who make these games. And in terms of like Elder Scrolls type of thing, I guess it looks like they're down to about the same size staff as when they made, I believe it was Hrothgar, which would be basically it was the chapter 0 back when chapters were a thing,
right?
Which is fine because that was a great chapter, and a lot of people jumped to that in a very positive way, and I think that's fine. Like, I think that's great. Don't be, bummer news. I tend to try to be optimistic, but a lot of this, I'm like, woof, man, it's rough to try to sift through some of this stuff. But it's like, you can only be so optimistic with bad situations, and sometimes I'm kind of hoping recently that like, maybe something's better than it seems, but.
Yeah,
you could still get very good stuff. However, to your point, the cadence of said stuff is there is no option for it but to be slower.
Right.
And as good as Hrothgar was, that was when we were getting one expansion of anything really per year in the Elder Scrolls Online.
Right.
The previous year was we got the Imperial City Zone.
Mhm.
Then we got Hrothgar. We have been on a cadence of like every quarter we're getting something, whether they're dungeons or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, new seasons, new updates to the way the game functions on like very fundamental levels. Yeah.
Which is all fine because it's all good stuff. It's just, but it'll just be interesting to see, especially with who is left, because a lot of very, very experienced people on these teams are not there. Not to discredit the people that are there, but it's just like you have a lot of people with experience doing a thing.
You lost a lot of
less
talent.
or
Yeah.
fewer, I should say, having fewer people. Well, then, regardless of the situation, just it's less manpower.
Right. Yeah. The piece that I'm most curious about is that there are going to be people who remain with the teams and whose job it is to still create good products, to still make sure Elder Scrolls 6 comes out and it's a banger and we all love it. And there are people who will stick around because they still love the series, because they still want to keep their jobs, because they still believe in what they're making. And so that they're sitting in meetings going, okay, how do we manage this? Not just from a standpoint of like, how do we manage what people's perceptions are out in the world, but also, okay, well, this is the team that we have left. How do we make the most of it and still create a good product? That's like, I've been a part of teams that have had to go through that, and sometimes they can pull it off. Sometimes they can make it work because the team that's there is scrappy and they're going to work hard and they're going to still do their best because they care. And so maybe that is still the case. I don't know. My point is that it would be really nice for someone to come out and say, all right, here are our plans to make sure that we still give you guys the thing that you want. Like, sell it to me. Tell me.
Right.
Tell me what that plan is.
There's still lots of potential there.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, me too. And maybe they don't have a plan, but like somebody's job is to put a plan together. And maybe the explanation is going to be crappy, but then we'll even know more for sure that well, we probably shouldn't get our hopes up. But maybe the plan is real good. Maybe they're like, well, you know what? The staff that we have left is working on this specifically, and we're able to pull people in from this studio over here, and they're going to work on this thing. And we're still on track for our release date that we haven't told you about yet, but whatever, maybe the plan is still good. We just don't know until somebody tells us. So
yeah, exactly.
So that's where I'm at with that. Also, you should go check out Tales of Tamriel. Check out my other shows, the Fallout Lorecast, the Lord of the Rings Lorecast, and Retro Recall. We've been getting through some old RPGs, some of the stuff that actually inspired Elder Scrolls and some of these other games early on. So go check out Retro Recall on whatever podcatcher you're listening to this on, and check it out. I think you'll enjoy it. It's a trip back into memory lane, and if you live through it, you'll be like, oh my god, I remember that. They talk about, that was a hit song when that game came out or whatever. And you'll be like, oh, I totally remember that. I hadn't thought about it. And if you haven't lived through it, then it'll be fun for you to hear perspectives on like what gaming was like back in the 80s and 90s. But yeah, all that stuff, robotsradio.net. But we have our random page, Lotus. This one is a person. This is an interesting one because it's like sometimes you get these like random people who are just kind of like random NPC working at a stall,
generic merchant on dock.
Yep. This time I hit the random button. We got Morikar, also called Morikar the Middling, an emperor of Cyrodiil and the second emperor of the Reachman dynasty of the Longhouse emperors.
Okay, that's what I was like. Why does that sound familiar? Okay, he was part of the Longhouse Emperors. All right, I had no context except I was like, that name doesn't sound totally like I've never heard it.
Yeah, he was the longest reigning Longhouse Emperor, ruling for over 20 years. During his reign, he worked to fulfill the bargain known as the Four Ambitions.
Yes. Okay, okay.
That his father made with Daedric Prince Mehrunes Dagon. A lot of this stuff plays out in ESO. You can meet him. He's a ghost when you meet him.
Yeah,
it's cool. It's some cool stuff.
Briefly kind of get his little recap. Okay, that's actually kind of a fun one.
Yeah. Reachman and the Longhouse Emperors, that's a whole weird situation that the Empire was taken over by this small group for a short period of time. But it's cool. It's part of the cool history of all the things. But there you go. That's going to do it for this week. Lotus and I will be back next week. Actually, we have a patron chat coming up now that we're in the middle of the month.
Patron chat next week?
It's 2 weeks after. The week after. 2 weeks on the 30th. So if you still have time to sign up and join us on the patron chat if you'd like to do that. And that's going to be it for us. Well, until next time, if you come across a giant, don't call him an orc. He'll probably send you into the stratosphere. But then again, he does that to everybody all the time anyway. So have a wonderful week. We'll see you next time.
See you later, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. Check out robotsradio.net for more podcasts just like this, and join us on the Robots Radio Discord. Be part of a community of over 5,000 people who are excited about video games and so much more. Robots Radio. Games, lore, stories, community. Just press play.
Most people don't realize how much their personal information is being bought and sold every day. Data brokers are making billions, pulling details about you from public records and the internet, and then packaging and selling it, usually without your consent. That's how your information lands in the hands of scammers, spammers, even stalkers. It's why you get endless robocalls and why ads seem to follow you everywhere. That's where Aura comes in. Aura actively removes your data from broker sites and keeps it off. They also instantly alert you if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura goes beyond data protection. With one app, you get a VPN, antivirus, password manager, spam call protection, dark web monitoring, and even up to $5 million in identity theft insurance. All backed by 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other companies might sell just credit monitoring or just a VPN. Aura gives you all of it, together, at the same price competitors charge for just one service. Start your free trial today at aura.com/remove. Protect yourself now at aura.com/remove.